Alright, well, I'm back. I figured to mix it up a little bit. I took a little drive off to Rosewood. Gathered up some gear on the way. And we're going to do a little bit of casual looting. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. I'm not sure if the real-life version of the shotgun can handle a bayonet, let alone the M9 from the M9 bayonet designed for the M16, but it is satisfying nonetheless. Man. At least we're having a house party in there. Now, if I'm going to get jumped, it's going to be in one of these upstairs rooms. Oh damn, I got her. Time to collect a little bit of reading material while it's still quiet. I kind of do need a pipe wrench at some point. Always gotta check your corners. I will say though, in games, there's definitely nothing quite as satisfying as a good old-fashioned pump action. What do we got here? Gold R700. Little lightweight deer rifle. It is worth noting that 223 and 5.56 are pretty much the same bullet. If I remember correctly, the civilian one, the 223, has slightly more powder in it, a little bit hotter. Some people say you can't fire it out of an AR-15 platform. Other people say you can without any problems. But the case dimensions and bullet and everything else are exact same. It's just one they stuffed a little more powder into it, a little bit more powder into them in some cases. Oh my! What? At my browse laser sight. Now back in the 90s, this was the thing. Whoever had one of those was kitted out. Especially when you consider like how big some of those old school laser sights were to get the smaller size ones. It really took a lot of miniaturization. Yeah, I remember in Terminator there too, when they had that, was it the 45 long slide with the laser sight on it? With the 80s tech for the laser sight, they actually had a little wire going down Arnold Schwarzenegger's arm underneath his jacket sleeve to power the laser because it was just, they didn't do a battery small enough to actually fit in the laser housing itself. And then 10 years later, you're getting like lasers you can viably mount onto a rifle or even a handgun without messing around with extension cords, essentially. Just fat. Never gets old how fast we kind of move forward. International Scout. Franklin Rodeo. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a little Yeah, it looks a lot like those little international scouts. There's a lot of them there too. They had the back, you could take the top and the back windows off and the doors off if you wanted to. Yeah, it looks, yeah, I think it is. Or at least heavily based on. Don't see those too often there. International, usually known for making industrial trucks, semis, dump trucks, that sort of thing there. Their little scouts actually were pretty sweet little rides. It's gonna be fun right up until the minute I start running low on ammo, and then it's gonna get real interesting real fast. That's how you say a problem for later. Imagine that though, you're just hanging out in a neighborhood, and all of a sudden you just hear this revving of an engine, this ungodly metal screeching noise, and tow truck towing a shipping container, dragging them across the pavement, comes ripping by, trailing out sparks behind them. Not gonna lie, that image is half the reason I go when I do that. Don't get me wrong, the carrying capacity and everything's nice, but just the image of ripping down a highway with, ripping down the middle of a suburban street. Making an ungodly amount of noise. That's probably indicative of why I live away from people, why I live out in the middle of nowhere, away from people. Also why I usually work out in the middle of nowhere from people too. Nice having the privacy to go and carry out really, like, you know, nice to have the privacy to carry out crazy projects whenever you feel the need. You know, half the stuff I do, you can't do in town. A few years ago, I was curious about blacksmithing, so I actually ended up building myself my own forge. And I'll tell you right now, you try that in an urban area there, and bylaw officers are going to be right up there as soon as you start hammering. Oh, heck yeah. You can't look good, as I said before, if you can't look good in the apocalypse, what's the point of surviving? Of course, that's coming from a guy who literally is wearing gear he stole from a couple of former members of the Kentucky National Guard, but, you know, that's neither here nor there, right? Nothing wrong with a good pair of gloves. Jeez. Yeah, that rifle there is done with the mod. I believe it's called something Undead Survivors. The rifle there is basically a mix of a, it's kind of a fun looking gun, but it's a mix of a Dragunov SVD, M14, and then like some flavor of like Barrett 50 cal or something similar. Like would see a thing out there, it's long. On the other hand though, it does look really cool, so. What do we got here? Oh, good old K98. And actually, you see a lot of those World War II era rifles. K98 bolt action Springfields. In Canada, actually, for hunting rifles, Lee Enfields that were cut. They had the furniture cut. They have the furniture cut down. And some various other modifications made. The bayonet lugs are taken off. They're actually really popular as hunting rifles. Actually, a lot of folks who for the longest time there too. I always assumed that Lee Enfield's actually that little magazine they got there that can be removed for like servicing and stuff. Well, I was always assumed that magazine. The standard way to use it was you took the magazine off, just replaced with a new one, because there was a couple companies selling plastic magazines for Lee Enfields, both 5 and 10 round ones, and so a lot of folks around here got in the habit of, instead of using stripper clips, just going and loading the magazine by hand and then just swapping out magazines. Kind of looking back at all that, the actual manual of arms is kind of funny now, but yeah, it actually works pretty good though. They're good little rifles. Actually, that was one thing too that popped up quite a bit in the Canadian market too. Actually, Parker Hale during World War I was commissioned to build marksman's rifle for the British Army, and so they did some really sweet little. They did these basically they're Lee Enfields made by Parker Hale, so they're just everything's a little bit better, a lot more accurate, a lot better mechanisms. Just yeah, overall nicer. And then a lot of them after World War I were kept in storage, and then they were used as training rifles in World War II. And long story short, though, after the war, they started getting sold off by consignment. You know, lots of 100 or 1,000 at a time. Government auctions, so folks were picking these things up for a song, cutting down the wood furniture, and then selling them as hunting rifles. And they're actually pretty good for that. Super accurate though. A lot of them too. A lot of them when they were first made too. This is back before Britain had a really good source of scopes. So a lot of them they're issued as sniper rifles, but they don't have scopes. And the ones that do have scope mounts or scopes, they're for Zeiss. I believe it's Zeiss, something similar, like German-made scopes. There's a whole big scandal where some fellow who's getting real clever in Switzerland went to Switzerland, bought a whole whack of German scopes, then shipped them out of Switzerland to Britain, sold them to the British Army. And when it came out, there was a whole big scandal because they're basically paying the enemy for equipment. one of those truth, stranger than fiction type deals. But yes, you have these British marksman rifles, and Parker Hale is one of those companies there. They make their whole business has always been precision rifles. Like if you're going in, like, you know, you got, you know, 10, 15 grand to blow on a rifle, and you want to match your exact specifications, they're normally the guys you go to for that. A lot of big game hunters, all those elephant rifles and big game rifles for safaris, those are Parker Hales. But yeah, no, they're pretty little guns. I had a chance to shoot one a couple times, quite a few years ago. But I'll say right now, I'm not a good enough shot to really appreciate how good of a rifle they are. The ramp sights on them will go up to 1,000 yards, and I've heard from a few folks there who are way better marksmen than me, that if you feel like it, you can reach all the way out to the maximum there. And actually, World War I too. Another Canadian one actually that was for a while there was pretty popular in the used market was Ross rifles, or the Ross rifle. What happened with those though? The Ross was a sporting arms company again, high-end hunting rifles. And somewhere along the line, someone in Ross made a really good advertising spiel to various members of the Canadian government right before World War I. And so they basically sold these high-end hunting rifles en masse to the Canadian Ministry of Defense, and they were issued as standard issue service rifles. Marksmen loved them, everyone else just hated them. Super accurate, super well made, very delicate internals, and like, if you got, there was the bolt, or was it, yeah, the bolt has a set of locking lugs, and if you insert the bolt into the gun wrong, those locking lugs won't line up properly, and when you pull the trigger, it'll shoot the bolt back out of the rifle, and best case scenario, you wreck your rifle. There's been a lot of anecdotes there, but more than a few guys who lost eyes or had broken jaws from their Ross rifles biting them. You know, anyway, long story short, complaints about the rifle's performance started getting out, and then there was an investigation on why it was even adopted, and then accusations of bribery, and it was a whole big deal. Anyway, they all end up in so about halfway through World War I, Canadian Army went to the Lee Enfield, which, you know, had its own issues and all that, but it was much better, much more reliable rifle than the Ross. Not as accurate, but then, you know, not everyone needs to reach out to half a kilometer. So most of the people who got swapped over didn't notice any difference. And you can't assemble a Lee Enfield in a way that the bolt shoots out the back and nails you in the face. Which is, yeah. You know, getting shot in the face is one of those things you kind of only want to be like, that's the only thing you want to only have is like an enemy inflicted risk. As soon as your own kit starts doing it to you, that's a whole thing. Anyway, they were in storage after World War I. They went all through the interwar period, sitting in storage. Nobody really did anything with them. And then when World War II came out, what happened there? The Canadian government, right after Dunkirk and Britain was on the back foot, they actually sent a big chunk of those Ross rifles over to Great Britain. And it's kind of like they're not the best, but, you know, they're functioning guns, and they're in 303, so. Yeah, and so they ended up actually a lot of the Home Guard guys, and then a lot of the Home Guard ended up getting a hold of them. Some Army units briefly had them, They were never really deployed in actual action as far as I know. They were more of a reserve thing. And so yeah, some of these rifles there literally saw service and technically saw service in both World Wars. And then after World War II, a lot of them were given back to Canada because the Brits didn't really have particular need for, 10, 15,000 finicky rifles. And so they ended up getting shipped back to Canada and again sold off en masse as hunting rifles. Which, is basically what they were designed for originally, so they're really good hunting rifles. Because, someone there, was able to sit there with the manual and take the time to put it together properly with, a nice table and a well-lit room. It's not going to have any problem putting it together, but as soon as you start mucking around in a trench with mud and bad lighting conditions and stuff, maybe you're in a hurry to reassemble it, so, or whatever, as we start making mistakes. Forgotten Weapons actually did a little myth-busting thing on the Ross rifle. It was pretty interesting. But yeah, so they could get theirs, the one they're testing there. They could get theirs to actually shoot the bolt out of the back, like a lot of stories claim, but like completely shoot out, like literally like a projectile. But it did blow through its mounting and come out the back with enough force to really do a number on this gel dummy's face. So, depending on how tight your cheek weld is, you could really be in for a interesting time. Yeah, for a while there, you could go and get a decent Lee Enfield for next to nothing, like $200-300. Not a thing you can do anymore. The people assume the market would never run out. And long story short is just wear and tear, people collecting them and stuff. The supply ran out. So it's kind of a bit of a shame there. And actually, Parker Hale's too. The one that I fired was part of a lot, and it was part of a hardware store. I managed to get a bunch of them back in the, I want to say 70s. And the fellow who owned it went in there, and they had basically just a bin full of Parker Hale rifles. And so he was in there with his dad, and the two of them went and basically dug around this bin and were checking out the actions and the barrels. And most of these Parker Hales, because they'd been used for training, in World War I they used for training, they were pretty much shot out, but they found a couple of them there that were in really good shape. And so, yeah, that's the one there. It went through World War I in British Army service, World War II being used for training, got cut down to a sporting rifle, and so it's, instead of having like the full wood covering like you see on a military version of a Lee Enfield, it just has just a basic shoulder stock and then a little bit of foregrip, and then where the bayonet mount and everything's was ground off. But yeah, no, it's a pretty neat little setup. But yeah, a lot of them there, like I said, were shot up, and then it was kind of hit and miss too. Sometimes you'd go and buy these. Same guy actually too. Really likes 303 as a caliber. He's got a bunch of them there. Specifically, originally back from the days when he used to hunt you out of bottom, but bit of an old timer. Anyway, he's got one there though, and I guess him and one of his buddies there, they bought a box of these old Enfields, like 5 or 6 of them, and split between the two of them. And they were looking at most of them in pretty good, okay shape and stuff, and there's scavenging bits and stuff. And kind of they Frankenstein together 2 or 3 really nice rifles out of the whole deal. Anyway, there was one there though and they weren't sure about it and all that. So they decided to fire a round through it, and they hit the round, and they hear the bullet make a weird buzzing noise. And they're trying to figure out what the heck was going on there, and they finally decide, well, let's go check out the target. And the barrel was so shot out on this thing that the bullet came out of the barrel and immediately went sideways. And so they fired a couple more times because it was kind of cool. Apparently, it made a really cool buzzing noise, and then the bullet would go and hit the target sideways. And about 3 or 4 rounds in, they kind of had a moment of, wait a minute, this thing, maybe we shouldn't be, holding this thing if it's this shot out. And so that one now is just a display piece. But that one actually, though, it's kind of neat, though. That one had all the original wood hardware on it. It's arguably the most authentic to World War II issue. And it's it's one of the ones that you would never want to hold while shooting. Yeah, Lee Enfields here in Canada are kind of like M1 Grands down in the States. Everyone got a hold of them, and then everyone assumed they would never run out because the Army surplus, will last forever, right? And then, yeah, one day the Army surplus started running out. Ironically, actually, the one thing you do see a lot here is SKSs. Before there's all those various trade sanctions on Russia, a few gun stores, especially locally, actually. I know one of them for a fact got in a shipment. It was a bulk shipment from some Russian warehouse. They had to spend like 3 days cleaning grease out of these SKSs. But they got like, I think it was 20, 24, something like that. Like just literally two full crates of SKSs set up for long storage. They literally, they wrapped them up in wax paper. They coated them in a good layer of grease. They literally, some of them there, the barrels were literally stuffed full of grease. Factory new, they'd been issued, they've been manufactured, gone through quality control testing, and then basically just put into storage. And so these guys the store had like 20-something SKSs they were trying to unload. And then they got 2 pallets of ammunition for them. And the ammunition was all bulk packed. Crates of 1,200 rounds each. And it was all from the same warehouse the SKSs were in. Again, I don't know if it was a legal thing or if someone carried out a bribe or something. But all the ammunition in those cases was all preloaded into SKS stripper clips. It was a pretty neat little setup there. It's also kind of where I started having my faith in Russian weaponry kind of shaken a little bit. These SKSs like some more were like factory new, and the build quality on some of them, oh my god. The gun shop there, I had a buddy there, and so we were kind of looking at them and chatting and all that. And they did a lot of gunsmithing work for a bunch of their clients. That was a big chunk of the business, and they were kind of joking around, and then they were measuring out they were joking around, and they were measuring. They decided just for the hell of it to measure out different parts of the gun. And some of these SKSs, the barrels were over caliber, and not just like a little bit here and there. Like we're talking like it's supposed to be 7.62 millimeters. Some of these were like 7.7 or 7.8 millimeters. And that's what we were laughing. I was like, oh, that's why these things never break. It's like, well, seriously, you shoot them, you get a bit of carb built up on the inside. It'd probably shoot better. Narrow the barrel down a little bit. Man, they got them. I don't know how much they got them for, but they were selling them for pretty darn cheap. Yeah, the only thing with the SKSs too, don't get me wrong, they're interesting little guns and everything, but yeah, some of them there, when they got them all made them all tactical and stuff, it was really just, I don't know, it's just, yeah, kind of putting makeup on a pig. In a lot of cases, there with the nice polymer hardware and stuff. They had one there that someone bought, and then had like someone bought this got this SKS for like $400, and then the guy commissioned about $2,000 worth of gunsmithing work on it. So by the end of it, they're at scope mount. They bought a really nice 8-power scope for it. Had this weird. There was a modification there where they had these weird detachable magazines that basically replaced the entire lower plate of the magazine. Really janky system, but some people really liked it there. And this being Canada too, so it was limited 10 rounds. But the one he got for it was 30 rounds. It was a 30-round magazine that had been capped to 10 rounds. So this thing has this huge 8-power scope on it, polymer skeletonized stock, and then this huge magazine sticking out the bottom that holds exactly the same amount of ammunition as the original one, and basically required a whole bunch of major work on the gun itself. But, yeah, no, we're kind of laughing. Yeah, me and Buddy, we're looking at the version. They were kind of laughing at it a little bit. It was kind of a weird setup. Like one of those guys who has like a really nice sports car. Buys like a really nice sports car or lifted pickup or something like that, and then basically just keeps it parked in the garage and only ever keeps it parked in the garage 24/7, away from the off-road trucks actually too with lift kits. They're always you see a lot of that with them. The old pavement princesses. A guy buys a $50,000 truck, puts another $50,000 in lift kit and off-road accessories, and then because he put so much money in it, never takes it off-road. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of the rifle version of that. Yeah, it's just pretty neat. It's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting place to visit. I will say though, actually, the last few years, the more I've been kind of getting into the history of firearms and stuff, and looking at different guns and all that, I'm gonna get a lot of people mocking me in the comments for this, I know, but one thing I actually really want to get a hold of is I kind of want to get a flintlock rifle at some point there. They're pretty cheap, relatively speaking. Muzzle loading. I don't need a PAL or any fancy certification for them. Yeah, no, so it's like they're really interesting little. There's some really nice reproductions actually, and one of the biggest companies that makes flintlocks, matchlocks, and wheel locks, is actually based in Montreal, so you don't have to worry about bringing guns across the border, which is difficult at best, which is challenging at best, and exercising futility at the worst. So they're already built in Canada. Actually, that company there, man, if you went in there with 15, 20 grand, what, 15, 20 grand, you could get some really fun toys. That's what's looking at their selection there. The biggest one they had was a 3-inch swivel gun, like what you'd see on like a pirate ship. Yeah, reproduction and all that. Certified safe to fire in the whole 9 yards. And not gonna lie, that would be pretty fun. But you could literally, this place there was selling all these reproductions. A bunch of their guns actually showed up in Pirates of the Caribbean. The prop house bought from them because they do historically accurate reproductions. And they also were doing, some of them do as kits, so you get all the components and you assemble it yourself and do all the finishing on the wood and everything yourself. which for prop houses is pretty sweet because then you can go and save quite a bit of cash by getting the interns to put them all together. Especially if you just need display pieces that don't have to fire. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If I had the money to go and buy one of their little rifle, buy one of their either it was a Baker rifle, those old British ones they used back in the Napoleonic Wars. But not gonna lie, if I ever had the money there, like let's be honest, who doesn't want to have their own cannon? Get a cannon, rig her up with some blank charges. Just sail around on a boat with a pirate flag on the back and a cannon on the front. Maybe I'm just nostalgic or something, but I think we can all agree that would be pretty fun time. Actually, speaking of cannons there, I knew one guy too who used to, one of his old jobs, he worked with BC Rail back before it sold up to CN. And so him and his buddies that worked at that job there kind of hit a point there where they started getting kind of bored. And they were in the locomotive shops down in Squamish. Vancouver. Anyway, it's down near Vancouver there. They were locomotive shops. And they got kind of bored. So we have a bunch of machinists who are bored with access to a whole bunch of tooling, and one day one of them got a hold of a locomotive axle. And well, long story short there, they made a cannon. They took one of the lathes and they bored out a hole, matched up to a golf ball, and a couple of them got making their own gunpowder out of just homemade gunpowder. And these guys, whenever they had like a slow day and the bosses went around, they would go and they would fire they'd fire golf balls out of this cannon onto the roof of the locomotive shop. Later that summer though, one of their bosses was doing some maintenance, got up on the roof, and I came in there. Hey, do you guys know anything about all the golf balls up there? But yeah, they basically built themselves this own little cannon. Yeah. Construction workers and machinists. There's anyone in like heavy industry there. If you ever need like a really, really interesting time, a really good time, hang with those guys. They get some crazy stuff up to some crazy stuff in their spare time. I know for a while there, my dad was trying to talk me into building a trebuchet. Oh, you got spare time? I don't have it. Build a trebuchet. It's like, I honestly don't have a lot of reasons not to. It's just that's kind of range those things have there. I'd be firing either into or over top of my neighbor's property, and that's kind of frowned upon. Something about, people not liking medieval artillery lobbing rocks or whatever else over their heads. Yeah, actually, this place I moved into too, there's a whole bunch of bridge timbers, or old bridge decking that the previous owner had gone from somewhere. And so these are 6-inch by 4-inch planks. There's 4 by 6 inch, and then there's 6 by 12 wood beams, basically. And then so the trebuchet discussion keeps coming up now. Oh, you got all the wood for it. You should build one again. You should go build one. But yeah, no, that's yeah, that was pretty close to going and. We were pretty close to doing it, in all seriousness there, and then My mom caught us in the planning stages and basically told us in no uncertain terms when we built one, we'd be the first one, we'd be the ones getting launched by it. But it's still floating around the old brain pen there. I mean, I got the materials, I could probably do it. But I really need those like good, like 16 plus foot 4x6 or 4, yeah, I'd say at least 4x6. That throwing arm. Yeah, you need that length of the throwing arm. I guess you could laminate them together and stuff, but the throwing arm has so much stress in the machine there. I don't know, laminating the throwing arm just feels like you're just asking that darn thing to disintegrate on you. Which, don't get me wrong, would be a pretty cool one-time thing where you basically launch half the boom into the wide blue yonder. But yeah, a lot of the timber around here too, like, not really suitable for trebuchets, unfortunately. A lot of softwood, where you really need like a good hardwood for that. Again, just mostly for the actual throwing arm. The rest there, you can pretty much brace it up as needed. Just kind of telling how much thought I put into this. Ah, yes. Abandoned public buildings, because nothing bad ever happens there, right? Man, just like almost like an old school, without the asbestos. Yeah, no, every couple of years there, a couple of the high schools, every couple of years a local high school gets shut down because they do renovations and they find enough asbestos to go and like shorten the lifespan of everyone in town. Which, isn't a problem, except that half the people in that town went to that school, so yeah. Anyway, it's getting kind of late here. I'm gonna call her a night. I'll talk to you guys all later. Yeah, get this load back to the base, do a little more building, and I can show you guys what I got next time. Anyway, gonna go and say peace out, and we'll talk to you all later.